Please be seated now. Our service is about to begin. We ask that you please silence your cell phones. We welcome guests and visitors, members and friends, everyone gathered here this morning and virtually live on Facebook. Come into this place and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision open your heart. My name is Jessica Dunsofenoff, and I am your worship associate this morning. I'm a member of the congregation and currently serve as our Director of Religious Education and our Office Administrator. Our worship service today is led by Reverend Kim Wilson, a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. Reverend Kim received her Master of Divinity degree from Moravian Theological Seminary and was ordained in 2001. Reverend Kim currently serves the UUs of Central Delaware and Dover, and when she's not engaged in ministry, Reverend Kim enjoys gardening, nature, yoga, and spending time with family. Video of today's service will be available on our YouTube channel later today. So there are a few announcements for this week. If you have donations for the food bank, the animal shelter, or the Coalition Against Rape and Abuse, please bring them up to the front of the sanctuary after service, and you can use the baskets indicated. Eastern Service Workers Association needs help filling backpacks with school supplies this Tuesday, August 29th, around 4 p.m. at the ESWA Center. They have an estimated request for 300 backpacks. So if you can help, please contact Barbara Burrell or Toby. The final Circle Dinner for 2023 is scheduled for October 7th. Sign-ups will begin next week, September 3rd, and end on September 24th. Soul Matters groups are small monthly groups connected to our worship themes with a unique practice component that helps us not just think about the themes, but live them. Each month, participants receive a theme-based packet that includes spiritual exercises, questions that encourage reflection on daily living, and recommended resources that help participants explore the themes in more depth. If you're looking for ways to grow your spirituality and get to know other people, Soul Matters groups may be for you. Sign-ups are open now, so see me after service. On Sunday, September 10th, we will have our annual water communion ceremony, so don't forget to bring water for this event. Join us next Sunday for Kip Marlowe and Who Turned Up the Heat, a workers' analysis. Protecting workers from heat stress was part of Kip Marlowe's profession. He worked hard at that part because heat causes many worker deaths. On Labor Day Sunday, Kip will share practical and political steps that control excess heat in your life. He'll share advice about keeping family members, workers, cars, houses, neighborhoods, and the world cool. Where individual efforts cannot control the risk, Kip will share his perceptions about what society should do and who blocks those protective steps. Welcome to worship.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's great to be back and see all of you here this morning. We're going to be talking about a free faith this morning. And so these opening words begin, our prophets died for the freedom of faith. We are here in your spirit. We are here to practice and sustain our living tradition. In our free faith, we are here seeking freedom from despair, the freedom to be loved as ourselves, and the freedom to grow beyond imagination. We are here gathered in the name of all we find holy, grateful for the gift of gathering here. Come, let us worship together.
Our translator today is Karen York. Some technical difficulties. Thank you. Please join me in reading the chalice lighting words by Paul Sprecher in your order of service. We light this chalice to honor the memory of those who have come before us, kindling flames of wisdom in dark times, willing to challenge orthodoxy even at great personal risk, giving us a legacy of freedom and a love of truth, a legacy that warms our hearts and lights our paths. Please rise now in body or spirit and sing our gathering hymn number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul.
We're going to not look at the words as a congregation. There's a river flowing in my soul, heart, mind, and soul. And then we'll got this. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind. And it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. So there's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing, there's a river flowing, there's a river flowing in my soul.
A book is provided in the foyer, in which you are invited to write whatever joys and sorrows you have as you enter. I will now read what you have shared. The other one is for me. I have a joy that my mom has been in and out of rehab in the hospital for the last 6 months, and she's being discharged on Monday to finally go home. Let us share in a quiet time together to reflect on our week. During the musical interlude, you may come forward and place a pebble in the water to acknowledge a personal joy or sorrow.
Let's be in a spirit of prayer and meditation. We join now together in this time of meditation and prayer, spoken at first, and then for a time in peace that silence brings. As we enter into the silence, we remember the many connections that sustain and uplift us through this religious community. We remember those who preceded us, whose contributions built a free faith, who created this home for its practice. We remember those around us, whose continuing care and thought, deed is an ongoing blessing in our lives, keeping the dream of free religion alive in our time. We remember those who will follow us, the children presently in our care, and those not yet come to light, who will inherit the work of our hands and our hearts. In the silence now we sit, surrounded by these many connections, visible and invisible, that remind us every day that we are not alone. And let us be in silence together for a few moments. May peace be with us, with all under the sun.
For still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
We will now take a moment to give and receive the morning offering. In a moment, the ushers will come forward to pass the offertory baskets among those who are in attendance. If this is your first time visiting us today, please let the basket pass, as your presence is gift enough. You can also text a donation to 609-293-4495, or for those who are participating online, please visit uucsjs.org and click on the yellow donate button for ways to donate online. Each week, we see a small and sometimes great miracle happen as people open their hearts and share their resources with this community of spiritual growth. No matter how you support us, we appreciate you and your generous heart. After all, your donation is what keeps us going, and no matter how those gifts are offered, they are always most gratefully received. The ushers will now accept this morning's offering.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Our reading today is by Elizabeth Tarbox. At the end of the reading, we'll enter into a time of silent contemplation, concluded by the ringing of the bell. The shell on my desk is long and rolled up. I don't know its name or where it came from, only that it's here and beautiful biscuit shades wave over it in perfect parallel lines. Within its folds nestle two other tiny round shells. They're safe there, protected. How we long to stay in the firm grasp of someone else's arms, to be swept up in their adventure and protected like these fragile twins in the shell's embrace, to be cared for, to be encircled, to sleep secure. But there's another way of seeing the ocean's artwork. Those little shells are stuck. Somehow, sometime, they were launched inside the other's grip, and nothing, neither the action of the ocean nor the roughness of the beach upon which the family foundered, can set them free without breaking the shell which protected them. As long as they remain as they are, they will not grow. Perhaps we are like the shells, wanting as parents to hold on to those for whom we feel responsible, wanting our babies not to take on the uncertainty of life alone. But I believe that relationships were not meant to be as rigid or confining as the sculpture of these three shells. We are swept up in the ocean of adulthood, formed by the elements of work and play, shaped by the holding on and the letting go, smoothed and wrinkled by saying hello and saying goodbye. Each of us deserves a separate, special life with love enough to protect us, but not disfigure us. Creator Spirit, grant us the strength to know when to hold on and when to let go. Provide us the protection of loving arms, which give us the security to choose our freedom. And when we come to rest at last, let it be in the calm of some safe harbor.
Thank you for that reading. Each time I hear it, I hear new things. I heard a story about a kindergarten teacher who was walking around the classroom observing the children as they were drawing pictures. And there was one little girl who was working very diligently. So the teacher paused and looked down at the drawing and asked the girl, what are you drawing? And the little girl said, I'm drawing God. And the teacher paused and she said, but nobody knows what God looks like. And the little girl didn't even look up. She said, they will in a minute. To be blessed with such absolute confidence. As a little girl, she knows what she knows, she understands what she understands. Chances are this little girl's concept of God will grow and change as she grows up. Once she's an adult, she may move toward a more mature, more nuanced understanding of the sacred. Depending on her environment and the ideas she's exposed to, she may, as an adult, be part of a religious community that helps her explore the questions about God, about life and death, and about how to best live one's life. For many members of traditional religions, there is a kind of comfort in a system in which they can find all the answers. This is one way of approaching the big questions of life and the search for guidance on how to live. Questions such as, is there a God? If so, what is the nature of God? Does life have meaning? How did time begin? What is goodness? How do I know what is truly just? What happens after death? Who doesn't sometimes long for the firm grasp of someone else's arms, to be protected, to be cared for, to be encircled, to sleep secure, as Elizabeth Tarbox writes? An orthodox belief system that can provide security, that can provide answers, that can eliminate doubt. A system like this can be very comforting and uplifting for some people, especially if they're surrounded by like-minded other people in a religious setting. For Christians, those orthodox answers would be framed by Jesus Christ. For Jews, the law of the covenant, and for Buddhists, the eightfold path to enlightenment, to name a few. There are two types of what we might call closed religious systems. The first is a system that's bound by a creed, a statement of faith that's created by religious authorities. A creed is a summary of the religion's sacred texts and their interpretation by those authorities, a sort of shorthand. The scriptural, non-creedal, is the other type of closed system. It's a typical stance of fundamentalist and evangelical Christians. The Amish, the Mennonites, and the Baptists are also Christian, Bible-based, and non-creedal. Again, it can be very comforting to know that there, inside this one book, are all the answers one needs. I'm reminded of a classmate named Bill, who was in a seminary course I took on the Gospel Book of John in the Christian Bible. I don't know what his denomination was, but Bill's religious outlook was one in which the Bible was the only source of authority. No creed but the Bible, as they say. I learned very early on that he and I were on the opposite ends of the spectrum as far as biblical interpretation was concerned. In this class, we wrote a reflection paper each week on the previous week's assignment. And then we trade papers with an assigned partner and comment on what our partner had written. And I'm quite sure that our professor couldn't resist putting Bill and me together. Because he was well aware of the differences between Bill's and my outlooks. At the time, I was a little annoyed, but later I appreciated what the professor did because I gained some insight into a very different paradigm of religious faith. We were learning to interpret the gospel writings metaphorically, but Bill's understanding of these writings was absolutely literal. Whatever Jesus says in the Bible is word for word accurate. He took strong exception to the idea that the author of John used his own perspective and literary devices in reporting the teachings of Jesus. Bill's was a faith that was very clear, very certain. He had a hard time in that class. The lack of a creed is a position that bothers many mainstream creedal Christians. Their creeds help preserve the Orthodox Christian faith. By providing a formal, public affirmation of their faith, churches enable their members and prospective members to know exactly where they stand. In this way, a creed provides clarity. It makes sure there aren't murky waters where people can get lost in wrong beliefs. A no creed but the Bible stance opens up the possibility of all kinds of interpretations of Scripture, what some have called novel deviations from historic Christendom. Or, more disturbingly, it could lead to the formation of cults. Usually, in a cult, there's typically one strong leader who dictates the interpretations. Now, Unitarian Universalism has never been a creedal faith. Both our Unitarian and our Universalist forebears rejected the idea that religious authorities have the right to impose their views on the laity. This is the source of our commitment to religious freedom. But we are not a cult, at least we don't think so. Maybe not everybody would agree, but here's why I say we aren't. As former UUA President William Schultz explains in the Unitarian Universalist Pocket Guide, our individual predilections need to be tempered by conversation with our tradition and tested within the crucible of our community. It is through this tempering and testing process that Unitarian Universalism continues to be called what we call a living faith, one that isn't static. The concept of a living faith makes us different from other religious organizations. As William Schultz has written, we respect the answers offered by Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, and other world's faith traditions, and even draw upon some of those traditions, but we respect the mystery more. We know that the answers to great religious questions may change from generation to generation, and that ultimate truths about the universe and its creations can never be captured in a statement of faith. Rather than being a creedal religion, Unitarian Universalism is covenantal, going back to the original Cambridge platform before the Unitarians split off from the Congregationalists. That basic covenant, created almost 400 years ago, was to walk together in fellowship. They said Christian fellowship because they were Christian back then, but to walk together in fellowship. A covenant leaves room for new understandings and change. As UU Minister Lisa Ward has written, a covenant says, I will abide with you in this common endeavor and be present as best I can in our becoming. She goes on, a creed gives authority to a statement. A covenant gives authority to a shared vision. A creed creates an us and them, whereas a covenant invites relationship. And our covenant includes a commitment to stay connected to both our Universalist and our Unitarian histories. The Universalist legacy of love, the center of our faith, and the Unitarian conviction that human beings have the capacity to shape the future responsibly. As Unitarian Universalists, as people who have chosen freedom of belief over a fixed doctrine, we have made a number of trade-offs. We've given up the comfort of knowing the answers. We've given up the sense of security that living in a known universe can provide. We've given up believing that we know the whole story, that revelation of the truth is sealed. The sacrifice of our covenantal faith is that we let go of assumptions, of dogma and control, and instead trust that greater wisdom will be revealed over time in bits and pieces as we grow and become together. We who have chosen a free faith have chosen to live with some measure of ambiguity. We have traded certainty for possibility. Yet we need to have a certain amount of tolerance for ambiguity and openness to multiple interpretations. And we need to be able to stay in the uncertainty, to stay with the questions, despite not having the answers, or sometimes not even knowing where we're headed. Sometimes we have to be willing to stay in the fog, to make room for new connections, which may eventually crystallize into a clear direction or a clear understanding. It's in the fertile place of unknowing that our creativity can really flourish. Those of us who choose a free faith trade security for vulnerability. Being vulnerable can be scary. But like little shells stuck inside a bigger shell, we know that as long as we stay as we are, we will not grow. We have to take risks. We have to make ourselves vulnerable in order to be open to new revelations, new understandings, new insights. Today, as we wrestle more and more with human diversity in all its forms and the desire for world community, we're sometimes challenged in uncomfortable ways to open ourselves up, aren't we? All of this takes courage. But it might help to remind ourselves that it's by being open and engaging with diverse backgrounds and experiences and ways of thinking and being. We have to get out of our ivory towers that we build sometimes And it's in these ways that we enrich our spiritual journeys. And it's also in this way that we ultimately find the essential unity that lies beyond all our diversity. As Unitarian Universalists, we have traded untested faith for one which embraces and encourages the exploration of our doubts. The Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg explains how doubt is essential to deepening our faith, whatever our religious tradition. She says we have to be able to try things out, to wonder. Faith is strengthened when doubt is a sincere questioning combined with trust in our own right and ability to discern the truth. And as Unitarian Universalists, we know that truth is never absolute. We need to be able to say, I thought I was right, but maybe there are other ways of looking at it. Holding opinions lightly, which is something that I'm learning to do more and more as I get older. When we relax our grip on our opinions and our tightly held convictions, we can then open ourselves up to listen to what the universe may have to teach us. And it's through these creative exchanges, whether with another person or in looking deeply into whatever it is that's before us, that we may be led to new insights and spiritual wisdom. Some members of Orthodox faiths find ways to face and work through their doubts, with the result being a stronger commitment to that faith. Of course, there are risks in doing that. Closer examination can have the opposite effect. Some of you here today may have had that experience yourselves in the past, which is why you find yourselves here. Others find ways to set aside their doubts. They instead turn their attention and focus toward their faith commitment even more strongly without wading into that fraught territory. Perhaps my former classmate was one of those people who would not or could not risk doubt. Those who choose a free faith, as we have, trade the protective comfort of turning away from conflicting ideas for the challenge of holding paradox in tension. For example, we may recognize that humans have free will and believe that everything happens the way it's meant to. We may believe that everything is in perfect order, that all is ultimately good, and yet there is so much pain and suffering in the world. As Unitarian Universalists, we have given up the security of being provided with a set of answers to life's big questions. We have instead embraced a free faith. With freedom comes responsibility. The responsibility to find meaning and purpose, to ponder those big questions for ourselves. The responsibility to live an ethical life and to contribute to addressing social and environmental injustice. And the responsibility to one another, to support each other on our spiritual paths. We have rejected one kind of comfort and security. Instead, we find warmth, comfort, caring, and security here in this community of faith. And we're held together in covenantal relationship by our history and our commitment to the values that are embodied in our principles. Remembering all those religious ancestors who paved the way for us with their dedication, with their tears, and sometimes sacrificing their very lives, let us celebrate the free religious faith of Unitarian Universalism. May it be so. Amen. We're going to sing our closing hymn, number 170. We are a gentle, angry people, and we're only singing certain verses, right, Gina?
Yes, there is. We're going to sing 1, 2, 5, and 6. And I will attempt to do a little shout out for you. See if you can enjoy. singing people, and we are singing for our lives. We are desperate together, and we are singing for our lives. We are desperate together, and we are singing for our lives. We are gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives. We are singing for our lives.
Thank you. That was fun. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. May you go in peace. Now we're going to extinguish the chalice. Let's read the words together. Do you have a chalice extinguishing person, or am I going to do that?
We without the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
At this moment, we're going to turn on the live stream, and we thank everyone for being with us here today. We're playing a very special song that should invite you to come to our services so that you can hear these special secret songs. Thank you so much. Many blessings. Okay, that's the end of our live stream, right?